Welcome back.
It's been a long time.
It has been. Do we want to catch the people up?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't want to catch the people up. Well, we
It's
can
none
catch.
of their business. Don't tell them nothing. Hey guys, Hannah and Dave here in Florida again. We've been apart for a couple of months while I've been back in Canada.
A couple of months? It's only been like a couple
not
of
even a couple
weeks.
months. It's only a couple of weeks.
It's
We have no excuses for the reason why we haven't been connected.
It's hardly been like 4 weeks since you left. Does my lack of absence in your life make it just feel so long?
No, it's been amazing. But here's the dog in the middle of the shot. That's not going to work for me.
It'll be fine. They'll calm down. People
Really?
love dogs. Yeah.
I hate dogs. No, I don't. I love dogs.
And
I love
this
dogs.
one's his favorite.
And this one is one of my top 3. So hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sorry that you have to get through that crap to get to the thing, but we wanted to talk today about
Jackasses.
and how to end relationships.
Well, we did talk about that. I think originally when we were like, well, let's pause this conversation and hop on the podcast was when we were talking about the book Ideal Team Player.
Yes.
And how you...
Patrick Lenciani, you're the man.
Yeah. As we were ending that relationship, I had texted you and said, no more jackasses. And in my head, I was like, Patrick would be so proud.
Right.
Me and my best friend. Yeah.
Right. So here's my challenge. And Patrick, I'd love to hear you weigh in on this. You're not going to see this, but I like jackasses. Like, I don't want somebody who's always that.
Right.
But can't we be honest? Don't we all have moments? Don't we all have days when we're a bit of a JA?
Yes, and so, and yeah, we do, but your concept on this is just twisted. The way that he talks about it in the book, and maybe it's just been a while, but I just finished it. So the way that he talks about it is the people who possess the hungry, humble, smart are not jackasses. And the ones who don't possess those things, they label as a jackass. And then they say, no jackasses in the company. And when we were talking about it, you were like, well, but I kind of like jackasses. But what you were saying is, I like people who aren't afraid to stand up for themselves. I like people who aren't afraid to tell me that they don't agree with what I think is true.
Right.
I like people who are opinionated and strong enough to not fold after they're being told everything. But that's not jackass. That's just a different... It's just a personality type.
I don't know, when I'm that way, people tell me I'm a jackass.
Well, but that's a different thing altogether.
So
That might just be a you problem.
that could be a me problem. It could be a me problem. I think what I'm trying to communicate, and I really like the way you said, I like people who are strong and have opinions and aren't afraid to share their opinion even when it's dissenting.
Or awkward, or
Yeah.
uncomfortable, or there's a number of different reasons that it's hard to tell somebody what you're thinking, but you don't like yes men.
Very much so. I don't want people that agree with me just because I'm the boss.
Right.
I want people that agree with the best principle, the best idea, the best outcome.
Right. And are in consistent pursuit of that, whether or not it's in line with what you
Right.
think in that given moment.
So I just interviewed a girl.
I know, I listened down the hallway. We talk about this a lot. Mom reminded me of this yesterday. She's like, that's why that's your nickname. But
Yeah.
my nickname has always been Ears.
Yeah, she is an eavesdropper of epic proportions.
So bad.
It's amazing.
It's so bad. I'm so nosy. I just want to know.
But it's also a really great learning opportunity for you. It's one of the things that you've done that has set you up for
Oh,
success. in life.
absolutely. It has set me, it is one of the best things I've ever done. But it just, you need, needed to learn some boundaries on it, and I'm still getting there. But so I listened to your whole interview, and you want to talk about the discussion of work from home versus working in the office. And
Yeah, so we were talking about, she's, 28-ish, the young lady that I was talking to, and
you should hire her
I really liked her.
so that she can marry one of the boys.
No, she has a boyfriend. So anyways, we're not hiring people to marry our kids.
It's a joke.
Unless it would work. No, we wouldn't do that. Sorry, that was inappropriate. Brian Bradley, I apologize for your sister and her comments. So what we're talking about is, I'm talking with this young lady, and it's like, I think work from home is dead, or on its way to being dead.
Right.
And she's like, oh, that's an interesting perspective, which is her telling me that I'm wrong, but she doesn't want to tell me that I'm wrong. But I felt like it was very good for her to be able to not agree with me.
Yeah.
In a first time interview.
Yeah, that is impressive. That's impressive.
I was really happy about that for her. And so, yeah, I think.
Which is such a funny concept, because I bet most people would not be thinking, I want to stand against something that the person who's interviewing me is talking about. That would be a turnoff for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or maybe it wouldn't be, but most people wouldn't think to do it.
Yeah, they think that if you need to be you in an interview. And whoever you are, if you're a kiss up, then be a kiss up. And if you're
but live true to that for your employee.
But you gotta stick with it, man. You can't, if you're gonna pucker up the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's just important that people be themselves and be allowed to be themselves. And what I want to create in our organization is an environment where the best idea wins.
Yes.
And that's not always mine. My job is to bring flint to fire. I'm the idea guy. I get things started. Where it goes from there,
you're not very good at.
I'm not good at. I don't even want to be a part of it. I want to bring ideas to the forefront and have other people improve on those ideas and march forward with it. And I want to watch and cheer people on from the sideline. I want to fund it and support it and help it grow.
And then back the heck out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have.
It is your best thing.
So we started talking about this relationship that we ended today. So we should talk about that a little bit. So.
Well, have we finished, before we get there, yes, we should talk about that. Have we finished the original thought of the book of Jackasses and what that means and whether or not people should be jackasses in the company? I guess just by definition it's different.
So what I would say to that is, let me try to put this.
I want to cap that bad boy off.
Okay, so this is the way I would encapsulate it: is everyone, and I mean everyone, is a jackass from time to time. And if you're not going to allow jackasses in your organization, you should start by firing you, because you're a jackass because you think that you're never a jackass. And we need to be patient and gracious and kind to people who are having off days and who are maybe not presenting themselves in the right way at the right time, the right moment. And obviously the reason why that's super important to me is because I often don't present myself in the right way at the right time, the right moment, even on the podcast.
Right.
Particularly on the podcast.
Particularly. Well, that, yes. And that ties right back into our philosophy around just bringing your fullness. As long as you bring your fullness every day, it doesn't necessarily matter, but it's the concept of being the best you that you can be in any given moment that is, I don't know how to finish that sentence, but when you do that, that's why, that's why you come to work every day. And so when someone's struggling or not performing their best, even if they're giving their fullness in that moment, that's when the empathy and grace and compassion and yes, all comes in, because everybody can be a jackass.
Yeah, I really believe that it's important that employees one of the things that I'm very frustrated about in society and working life society in particular is this concept of they're paying me $28 an hour and I'm giving them $28 an hour of energy, and they're not giving them their fullness. And that'll be a generational shift.
Yeah, no, I am neither here nor there on that. I have feelings that go both ways with it. Yes,
I understand that there is an internal struggle when, for my $28 an hour, I'm giving my fullness, which appears to me, in my brilliance, is a lot more than your $28 an hour of fullness. And so that's where people get upset, is they compare themselves against each other
that's not
instead
what I'm
of comparing
talking
themselves
about.
to themselves.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I hear what you're saying. I think that where I see a problem with it is when companies are not paying their employees equitable for the roles that they're doing and the work that they're producing. So let's say, for example, you had a company that hired an employee and it was an AZ driver who was hand bombing and I don't know, make up a nice hard job in your brain. And then they were like, but we want to pay them $25 an hour. And that employee, see, this is where it gets complicated because that employee accepts the job. So they should hypothetically be working
Deal's a deal.
at their fullness.
Deal's a deal. You gave your word, I gave my word. If you don't like the outcome, you're free to take your skills to market. So for you to stay and to take money, saying that you would give your fullness.
Are they completing the job as necessary? See, maybe my problem here is that fullness in my brain is going above and beyond what is asked of you, because that is what I like to define my personal fullness as. But other people's fullest might be completing the job as required. And if completing the job as required is still what he's doing, but he's not exceeding his expectations.
Yeah, I understand the internal struggle with that. What I would say is this. Your definition of fullness should just be what you're capable of and not be limited to what's required or requested. And the way that you earn opportunity for more is by doing more. And the way other people find their way to plateau at a level is to do what they're capable of. And if everybody does what they're capable of, the free market will allow people that can do more to do more, and people that have limitations to do what they're capable of without judgment or harsh feelings. The free market balances all those things out.
So what about, let's take it from a different perspective. You have a very senior employee, and I'm actually leaning now more towards your perspective. So this is just simply a devil's advocate conversation. But let's take it towards a senior employee who has a massive capacity, but is moving towards retirement and wants to back out of what they're currently doing. So they're not giving their fullest because they have more capacity, more wisdom, more depth, more knowledge, more understanding, whatever. They've taken a reduced rate because they don't, like, now this is you're completing what is required of you based on what is required of you, based on what has been predetermined. So it is just an exchange for an exchange. But that capacity isn't being their fullest.
Yeah, so what I would explain to you is something that you don't understand because you're not old.
Bring it on.
And I'm old. Really old.
Super old.
I have capabilities, but at 52, my capabilities are not what they were at 42. And so just because I know stuff and could do heavy lifting earlier doesn't mean I can do the same level of heavy lifting today or for as long as I was able to do it before. The stamina is less, the capacity is less, and so hopefully.
So you're saying my argument's mute because
It balances out. It all
Fair enough.
market
Okay.
market all balances out based on age and whatnot. I think the other thing is that I can do more in less because I'm smarter now. Like I can be more efficient. I have more trips around the sun that give me insight that I would have had to research before.
Can I take us down a bunny trail?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if at the age of 40 you are wise and knowledgeable and have the capability to do the work that you were doing in 10 hours in 8 hours because you don't need to look up whatever and blah 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 whatever. If you put two employees next to one another and they're both technically supposed to be working a 40-hour week, and one of them is doing it in 30 hours and one of them is doing it in 40 hours. Hold on, I will figure out how to finish this sentence. How does that make sense with capacity and fullness and fairness?
Yeah.
If those two employees are getting paid equally, does the one employee need to be spending additional hours doing additional work? Or does there need to be a pay difference? Or how do you deal with that?
I think that's why all compensation is negotiated between an employer and an employee and should not be discussed between coworkers.
Oh, I would agree with that.
And so the reality is that you make a deal with your employer and your deal is your deal. And if you accepted a substandard rate, that's on you and on the employer. That's an issue, not an issue me. And if you asked for too much and you didn't get the job, then that was your opportunity.
Part of playing the game, yeah.
Yeah, and so the reality is that those things all get fixed when you negotiate your deals. The problem is people no longer hold that information as confidential.
Yeah.
And there's such a big bugaboo about fair and equitable. And like I had a young lady this week asking me to consider a fair and equitable resolution, and I was like, those are trigger words. And I was like, what makes you think that I'm not fair and equitable? We had a deal.
That's true.
And so it's just we have to be careful about the language we choose. And yes, I think parity, same wage, same job, male, female, but like years of experience. The difference would be years of experience in the role and loyalty to the organization sometimes gets rewarded.
And that all goes exactly back to one of my favorite concepts around the word fairness, is that fairness is different for every single person because every single person's situation is completely different. So when I've used this example lots of times. If you're in a kindergarten class and a kid bumps his knee and you give him a Band-Aid to put over the scrape on his knee, that's fair. That's treating the issue that he has. If a different kid the next day falls and knocks his head off of something and needs an ice pack, but to be fair, he gets a Band-Aid, it doesn't help the situation that he's in. It's not actually fair because it's not supporting him. Every single person is different. Every single situation is different. Fair isn't fair because it's all convoluted.
Equality is not fairness.
Yes, equality. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Treating a different problem with the same solution is not fair.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
That's a really good way of putting that. Thank you for.
Okay. So.
Okay, bring it back to the ending relationships, and also I have to tell you, just before we get there was one spot in there where you really wanted to say something, and I saw you go, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You did so good.
Yeah.
That's so impressive.
Normally, there's very few breaks between here and here, and
You can catch them.
yeah.
Generally,
it has my hand on my head when it's happening.
That's what that section is. When
So,
he's processing.
If I'm processing, if I'm rubbing my head, I'm slowing things down. I think that ending relationships is hard, and knowing when to end a vendor relationship or an employee relationship is challenging. We ended a vendor relationship today, and I had a real affinity for the other person. We hadn't been in business together long, but I think that they took offense where no offense was intended, and even when we tried to eat it for the relationship, they wouldn't let us. And so
that
it was just kind of weird.
That was the thing that really drew me. And we can be honest about this. This was like a relationship of mine through a vendor that we had been working together, and I had been slower in communication with them, and that's kind of the thing that they were impeding on. And so I started the conversation, and this is how I would like to start any conversation if I need to eat it, because that's what you do. If you did something wrong, you own it up front. And so that's what I did. I was like, hey, I'm sorry, let me step right out and say, this part right here, 100% my fault. This is what we're here to talk about today. This is what I'm looking to understand, and this is where we'd like to go with it. And then from there, it was like there was no...
It unraveled really quickly.
Oh, so fast.
It was so I don't really understand, and I obviously can't debrief fully what was going on there, but there was something there that wasn't a fit, and in the end they offered us a gracious exit, and we received their offer. I thought that was pretty good of them in the way they did that. It wasn't go away mad, it was just let's just go away.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, even though the conversation was fairly tense, and we didn't see eye to eye on things, that we all ended it fairly well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say is your biggest takeaway about ending
relationships?
Yeah, B2B relationships.
Yeah, I think that ending, let me just say this, it's not respectful, it's not kind, it's not appropriate to end relationships and not tell the person that you've ended the relationship.
Absolutely. Ghosting.
Don't ghost.
Ghosting
don't
needs to die.
I think that's just.
I like that.
I've used the term a number of times and have heard said that no response is a response. No, it's not. No response is not a response. And when someone says something stupid, like really dumb, you can give a response without giving a response. You don't have to respond to every statement, but it's rude to not respond.
That's wild. You've said that since I was born. No responses, like up until a month ago.
And I'm awful. Like, I've got lots of people emailing me that I don't respond to. I got lots of people emailing me, not that I don't respond to, that I never read your email. And so, my voicemail used to say, hey, don't leave me a voicemail. Send me a text. I've had lots of feedback about that. I want good communication with people. If an unsolicited sales contact where they're just like cold reaching out to me, I think in that case probably no response is a response. It's like
Oh, see, but as the salesperson, I disagree.
of course you do.
If you don't want me to email you, just say no and I'll stop.
Yeah, I've tried that tactic, and typically I get 5 more emails, and that's when I have a real problem. Is when I've told you no, and I've told you just stay out of my inbox. That's problematic for me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, it's disrespectful.
That is just plain disrespectful.
So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
hey, this is going on too long. We're
no
at
response
25 minutes.
Is a response. That's good.
No response.
Is not a response.
Is not a responsible response.
Is not a responsible response. That's good.
Scripture says in Proverbs, it says, answer a fool according to his folly. And then a couple verses later it says, do not answer a fool according to his folly. So according to Scripture, it's both.
I'm confused. Yeah.
It's both. Sometimes something is said so stupid that you're just like, I can't deal with that. There's nothing that I can say that's going to communicate to you the truth that you need to hear to help you understand how dumb that was, what you said.
And that just brings us right back to the point of every single situation is different. There's no such thing as fairness. Equitable doesn't matter because every situation is different. So, but
yes.
that's just, I want to give my point because I asked you and you didn't ask me, and I'm just going to tell them
please.
anyways.
What was that?
My biggest takeaway? So initially, my biggest takeaway was own your shit up front.
Okay.
But followed by that, my biggest takeaway is own your shit, but don't be bullied. And so this is my thing, is as soon as this conversation happened, I was like, I did bad. Like, I was in a bad spot for a couple of minutes, just a couple of minutes, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I dropped the ball this much.
That it all fell on
me. That it all fell on me. Yeah, and the way that conversation rolled out was just not fun. But anyways, as I went back to it though, I reevaluated the situation and looked back at it and I was like, no, here's a fact, here's a fact, here's a fact, and here's a fact. It's not all my problem. And so I think that oftentimes when something gets blamed on someone, it can be really easy to say, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to do this, and back yourself into the victim corner. And I'm not interested in that. I'm like, you know what, I'll own my stuff, but this concept was great and it should have worked. And there was lots of reasons that it didn't. And so rather than being I can't try this again, it's learn the lesson, move on, and try again. So it's more about the rebound afterwards.
It's always about the rebound. The subject matter of the conversation was what's working, what's not working. We knew we had a problem, there was a roadblock, and the way I had tried to set up the meeting was, what are the roadblocks so that we can remove them and move forward?
Yeah.
What we ended up with was,
you are
the roadblock, and we're not going to work with you anymore.
Yeah, well what they heard was
that we were accusing them and we weren't.
Right.
Because they're they were defensive.
Which
I think that's a good lesson
also
as well.
Yeah.
Don't be so defensive. Like when just listen.
Let's just have
let's
an
just
adult
listen,
conversation.
Let's listen to her. And so much of business is about listening to the other side and talking less and just like, let's work this out. Like just have an attitude of whatever the issue is, we can solve it. I believe that largely whatever the issue is, we can solve it. Or we can peaceably agree to move on. Mm-hmm. And so
that's what we chose to do.
That's what we chose to do. Those are our takeaways today. I hope this conversation is interesting to you and helpful to you in some fashion. If you need us, reach out to us. Drop a comment in the box below. Mm-hmm. What do they need to know? How do they reach you?
They need to know that we have the coolest WTF. Oh, you got to see the back of it before.
Our Hannah's wearing our WTF logo on her Better Together sweatsuit. That's why she's all geared up.
I've decided to be a suits and suits person. Suits or suits? Sweatsuits, swimsuits, suits. That's it.
That's it? That's all?
Suits and suits. But
Nice. I like it. Hey guys, have a great day.
bye for now.
Thanks for hanging.